Escape room employees, what was the weirdest escape tactic you've seen? I've learned not to make the final stage a lock with a key because damn if I haven't met some of the best lockpicks in the state. My family did an escape room and there was a room with a phone that connected to 3 other rooms. The door only opened when you dialed the right numbers on the phone, and so my sister just walked up and pressed redial and the last door opened. We have the record of 7.5 minutes to complete the room. My brother and I once got out of a room by taking a magnet from the previous puzzle and using it to lift a key out of a small opening in a lockbox. There were 6 of us and nobody could figure out the last clue, so we improvised. Got out with 3 minutes to spare. Pretty good, kid. I was told this by an employee. There were paper clips to unlock handcuffs. Someone stuck it into a functioning outlet. I don't think that guy was trying to speed run the escape room. Not an employee, but did a room with 2 friends where we got randomly placed with a family with 3 kids under the age of 12. The youngest was maybe 7. We were like, oh man, we're not going to get any help at all. Kids won't be able to solve anything, and their parents will have to keep track of them. But there was this one part where you had to solve a puzzle that would allow you to move a bookshelf on treads. There was a small gap through which you could see the key, but it was too small to get more than a few fingers through. Unless you're a small 7-year-old boy. He just popped his arm in there and grabbed the key. We bypassed a good 5 minutes of the room that way. Also, the kids ended up being delightful and pretty good at finding stuff. There was a group of people who were doing a space-themed escape room. In one of the rooms there was an astronaut suit, which was supposed to just serve as a prop, but one of the members thought that it might be needed to solve one of the rooms. So he ended up traversing through the entire escape room while wearing an astronaut suit. And no, it wasn't needed to solve anything. No joke, this is actually making me want to try an escape room. We had a room where you were supposed to translate this code into different words. We had a list of possible words, and then put them into a specific order. We weren't positive how to use the code translator. It was something with wheels, so instead we just used some common sense, like XCWWB is obviously going to be green, not purple. But the lock that was supposed to pop open when you got it right had already popped when we got in, so nothing happened. We asked for a clue and she made us use the actual code wheel because she assumed there was no way we could have gotten the words right without it. I worked at an escape room for about a year, but one group managed to always stay in my mind. It was a group of 4 women, maybe in their 50s, drunk out of their minds. They started off the room quite well with a pace that would allow them to escape, but then they encountered what we considered to be the easiest puzzle in the room. Basically, they get a long magnet and use it to pull a key out of a locked window. However, they, for some god-unknown reason, could not figure this out. After a bit of trying, they asked for a clue. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of, remember that magnet stick you guys got? Some might call it the key to success. Simultaneously, they all sigh, which is a common reaction when people realize that an answer to a puzzle was so simple, but no, they didn't understand the clue. Instead, they shoved the book into the window in hopes of getting the key, which is something we specifically tell them not to do. Had to end up pulling them from the room as they started ripping apart the books. At a certain point, I am just sat here wondering, how much worse could I be than some of these people at these escape rooms? Working at an escape room, I have a lot of stories, but this one will forever be my favorite. It happened a little over a year ago now. A guy was wearing a baseball cap when he went into the room and shortly after took it off and placed it somewhere. About 7 to 10 minutes later, he picked it up and started searching it for clues or hidden messages. His wife needed to remind him that was his own hat, and it actually took some convincing. He really didn't believe her at first. I work at an escape room in Sweden and we use live actors in our games. One time when one of my colleagues entered in character, a group of people decided to grab him and tickle him so that he would let them out, because they thought that was a great tactic. Worst part is that when they got out the normal way, they were very proud of their actions and thought they were really funny. I abhor being tickled, like, so much, so I have a lot of sympathy for that worker. I'd be so angry too, like, you're just trying to do your job and a bunch of people start tickling you. Surely there are like rules and regulations to these things. It's like, hey, don't bother the actors that we have working at this place, please. Our rooms had a lot of decorative touches, lots of pretty knickknacks just to enhance the mood. One of our rooms had a Victorian parlor, smoking room feel, and on the mantle was a small statue of a bird of some sort. One gentleman decided to pick up and carry the eagle for about 45 minutes. But guys, this eagle has to be for something. He tried placing it on things, opening it, using it as a key. Thank goodness he didn't try to use it to bang something open. When the group finally escaped, he was at the door and quickly asked me, "What was the eagle for?" Oh, nothing. It's just for a decoration. He had done absolutely nothing to help his group progress. So he walks over and sets the statue down and lets out a heavy sigh. He seemed absolutely crushed. Meanwhile, the rest of his group was partying and celebrating their success. I get that. That is the worry, that you go to one of these things with a bunch of friends and no matter what you do, how hard you try, you end up contributing nothing to the team. That would be awful. I feel for this dude. I have tons of stories about destructive players, so instead, how about a weird and actually intelligent method? After my brief and video, the players started to run around the room, all talking out loud, not necessarily talking to each other. I thought that there was no way they were going to escape with how disorganized they were. Boy, was I wrong. One of the group members shouts, "Pumpernickel," and everyone else shuts up immediately. They continued to play like this through the rest of the game. Whenever one of them had either found something interesting or figured out an answer, they would shout "Pumpernickel," and immediately everyone else would give them their full attention. They got out in 30 minutes and 0 clues in a room with a 20% success rate, and average time to complete is 45 to 50 minutes. Definitely one of the better groups I've managed or seen. I worked on one where a roulette table was one of the answers. Now, we didn't want to rig a roulette wheel, so we gave the lock multiple answers. Now, this family comes through and plays it and gets double zeros, and they assume it's rigged to land on double zeros. Pretty common assumption. They spin it again, lands on double zeros again. I worked there for about a year, and I don't think I'll ever see something like that again. The family didn't make it out of the room, but they were extremely close. I had a friend who ran an escape room in an older house. She said she had a group that snuck in tools and disassembled the furniture looking for clues, namely a metal child's bed and rocker. She had another group that peeled off a layer of wallpaper and punched a hole through the drywall. I also went through with a friend who tore a stuffed animal in half to remove it from a locked box instead of finding the key. Hearing about these, I wish they would do crazy stuff like that, like, let's insert a key in a teddy bear or something like that. That'd be cool, I guess. I mean, you gotta consider that you can't go around breaking all this crap, right? An employee told us this story. The room we went to was part of an older building, and there was an unused fireplace. A previous lady had opened the chimney flue, letting a dead bird, among other things, into the room. This lady thought the dead bird was part of the escape, and the employees had to inform her that it wasn't. I've built 2 escape rooms which we ran at conferences and events, guaranteed occurrences. 1. Someone rips something apart due to overenthusiasm. 2. Someone rips something apart because they came in drunk. 3. The meekest, quietest person in the group figures a puzzle out 20 minutes before everyone else and nobody is listening to them. 4. The smartest people never figure anything out. Hot tip, if you're going to be in an escape room, pretend you're dumb as poop. We never require you know advanced chemistry or have an IT background. All the pieces are in the room. If your first few guesses on a puzzle aren't it, don't sit there beating your brain on it. Hand it to fresh eyes. 5. Someone does the opposite of what the warning label says. If it's shaped like a laser pointer and has a giant do not point at eyes, guess where it's immediately going. 6. Since we show at conferences and take over other spaces, we don't have 100% control of this space. We will hang black curtains over things or put a label on something that says not part of the puzzle, and people still, with almost every run through, find something new. Like there was a label on an AC vent high on the ceiling and somebody spent half an hour going, what does it mean? 7. Someone figures a puzzle out that spells out a clue, notices the clue, then disassembles it and forgets it. This behavior I do not understand. We had one puzzle where people had to connect strings to a point on a grid, and when all the strings were up, it spelled a 3-letter word. Groups would do this, notice the word, comment on it, then take all the strings off the wall. Then 10 minutes later, be going, this lock needs 3 letters to open it, and I'm screaming from the security camera room. 8. I built a puzzle that has a 30-second timer. If you don't solve the whole thing in that time frame, it resets. Once you know what to do, it's just button pushing. It's easy. But holy Christ, having a short time limit stresses some people out like crazy. Like screaming, it's gonna reset, oh God, at their teammates. That's just people getting real into the game. I mean, hell, me and my mates yell at each other when we play Mario Kart. We curse each other's names, but pretty sure that's typical of a regular Mario Kart game. Emotions get pretty high. Work in an escape room and we have a prison scenario. Shocker, I know. Set in the 1960s in Germany. Made to look authentically old, there is an old rusty toilet, obviously without water. Via the cameras, I could only see the back of the dude appearing to investigate the water tank above the toilet, only he wasn't. You might already guess where we're heading. This dude thought it was perfectly appropriate to wee into a prop toilet in a confined space, with 3 friends present in the same room. I lost my crap and had to throw the group out. There was a drawer that would activate a black light when you pulled it open. Group was pretty dumb and clueless, gave them a hint. You'll find something useful if you open a certain drawer. Naturally, they find the drawer and someone decides that it would be useful to grab the light bulb and rip it out of its socket. Entire room blacked out cause they tripped the fuse. Needless to say, they did not escape. In a clown-themed escape room with my friends, we found a coin which we found out was used later on in the room. There was a hole in the floor with a note that said, "Do not put the coin in this hole." We thought it was a trick or something, so we put the coin in there, only for nothing to happen, and we couldn't get the coin out. With all the notes and warnings that employees apparently put around the place, or have to say because otherwise people trash the rooms apparently, this doesn't sound quite as fun as I imagined. Former employee here. We always reminded our guests to be gentle and respectful inside our games. That force of any kind is entirely unnecessary. People have ripped handcuffs from tables and walls, used incredible force to rip open maglocked doors, somehow used a key from their own keychain to unlock a cupboard that is not meant to be unlocked at all. There is a phone in one of the games that cannot make any outgoing calls except to 911. There is a note on the phone asking people not to call 911, and we reminded our guests not to call 911, but it constantly happened. It was rare when it happened, but some kind of parallel thinking that led them to getting the right answer without any of the clues. It's pretty alarming when a door opens and it required a clue in another locked box. In the escape room I work at, I once had a party of older 20-somethings come in during a day out. They didn't pay much attention. I think some of them might have been a bit drunk, but I'm not sure, but they worked at a pretty good pace. In the room they were doing, they had to find a crank, a gear, and a handle in order to open a mechanical box that had the answer to the mystery they were trying to solve. We weren't allowed to lock the door for safety reasons, so before they even step in the room, I gave them a whole spiel about the rules and whatnot, and told them that anything that looks like it needs more parts to work probably does, so please don't force things. This box clearly has a part for the gear, and a part for the crank to attach to said gear on the side of the box. After finding the gear and handle, but having not found the crank yet, one of the dudes in the room just attaches the gear and with sheer force of his grip turns it without the crank and opens the box. I was just staring at the monitor open-mouthed in awe. I haven't seen anything before or after that could possibly top that experience. They ended up deciding to continue the room and try to find the crank after I informed them what happened, and they'd technically solved the room and had a blast. This is our extended list at work, basically meaning that people have done this crap at our venue and now we have to brief everyone with this list. Ceiling tiles and sprinklers are not part of the game. Do not kick holes in our walls. We do not keep clues in the plaster. Do not pull apart our phone. It is there for clues from the staff. It is not a clue itself. Climbing on top of our shelving and jumping onto a lockbox to break it open is not how you solve a puzzle. Kicking doors down is not permitted in gameplay. You are not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do not place metal items in the power outlets. They are live and will kill you. These are the types of people who look at us with surprise on their faces when we have to repeat they are liable for the damages they make. I'm starting to wonder if some of these contestants got confused between an escape room with a rage room, I think they're called. You can just go in there and break whatever's in there with whatever you like. It's supposed to be really good for an anger outlet. Last week, a woman ripped a very large painting out of the wall. It was clearly marked "Do Not Touch" and screwed into the wall with anchors. One part of our game requires you to look up information in a textbook. We give the page number to help solve a puzzle. I've had 2 groups now waste 5 to 10 minutes solving the practice problem instead. Didn't know you could pick combination locks until a guy did it. If there is any kind of lock anywhere in an escape room, I can guarantee someone has tried to pick it. Drunk people in particular get pretty creative, usually not in ways that are beneficial to them. At least once a week we have someone ask if they can just make their way through the drywall. I know it's a joke, but I always keep a closer eye on those people. But we have our customers lock up their belongings in lockers prior to entering the rooms. It's important to note that the lockers are not assigned per room. Any player can pick any locker. The other day I had a group open up a locker cabinet which has the means to escape in it within the first 2 minutes in the room, and escaped right away. When I asked them how they escaped, fearing that we forgot to lock it during the reset, they let me know that they used their locker key to open it. Needless to say, we got new locks for our lockers. God, my boyfriend works in an escape room, and they tell you at the beginning, if you have to use force, then it's not meant to move. Then people literally rip lights, bookshelves, clocks, skeletons that were drilled into the walls right off. I think they spend close to a few $1,000s a month repairing crap they told customers not to do. That sounds ludicrously frustrating if you were the business owner of that establishment. I had one team shut the magnetic secret door behind them, locking themselves in for no reason that was particularly dumb. In one of our rooms, there's an opening in the wall for a long tube that they're supposed to stick a magnet into and fish out a key. One team decided to drop the cryptex they were trying to open into it instead. That was fun to try and get out. One team of the two got to the end of the hour time limit without even solving the first puzzle. In another room, we have a mannequin hanging from a noose. My coworker watched one particular idiot put the noose around his own neck and climb onto the bench next to it. He got a real shouting at over the walkie-talkie for that moronic stunt. This job sounds like, I don't know, the second most infuriating jobs after maybe working in the stock market. A group came into this place and I went through everything. I was the only employee who was fluent in English, so I'd go through the rules. The rest of the staff are Russian and mostly speak Russian. Only one knows broken English, so she'd relay stuff to me if needed. Well, one day, as I said, this group came in. My boss and her friend, who were visiting, were discussing in high-speed Russian different parts of the escape room, how to get in and out and such. I assume no one can hear or understand them, so I go through the rules and such. I mention I'm also on a loudspeaker and such if they need help. The second they get in the first room, a guy goes, "You guys remember how I speak Russian? Want to set a record? I can hear you." Niet! Not necessarily an escape tactic, but when telling the group the rules and what to do, i.e. don't go in the ceiling, they almost always think you're just trying to misdirect them. Please do not, under any circumstances, mess with the fire detection and alarm system. Somehow translates to, there is definitely something hiding in the functioning smoke detector. They were not happy with the bill for the fire department getting called after they ripped it out of the ceiling. If I go to an escape room and ever do something this stupid, I'm probably going to come back on here and be like, well, I did it. I fell victim to my own stupidity and I paid for it. All of my judgments of other people in this specific topic were unfounded and, well, I was no better. There was one person who ripped the wires out of a pressure sensor, then stuck said wires into an electrical outlet, shorted out the room, and no, they did not get out. In his defense, he knew a lot about electricity. In high school, I used to work in an escape room for my co-op. I usually just watched cameras and swept up the room after everyone was done. In our medieval room, there is a ventilation hatch really high up on the ceiling. It's really out of sight, but if you're looking for it, you can find it. I've witnessed 6 full-grown guys form a human ladder to try and open the hatch with a bobby pin they found on the floor because they thought it was part of the room. I had to send in my colleague before any of them got hurt, though. "Hey guys, I've got an idea of how we can escape this medieval-themed escape room. See that modern-day ventilation shaft up there? I bet that's the way we get out." Worked at an escape room while I was between jobs. We had a room that had a long vase glued to a table with a key at the bottom. There was a stick magnet located in the room, but one of the first things people usually found was the other magnets utilized in another part of the room. This person took off a shoe, completely pulled the laces out, and tied it to the small magnet to stick down the long vase. Creative, but completely unnecessary. Plus, then it was super confusing when they did eventually find the long magnet stick. I guess that's the issue with these things. People find stuff, get so excited that they found a clue or potential answer for how to get out of the place, and they want to use it immediately. So then they're like, wait a minute, but it doesn't quite work. Maybe they expect us to use our brains even more and think outside of the box. Like, I understand that. It's kind of like, I know, going on a tangent, but it's like when I first played Dark Souls. I went straight to the graveyard, tried to go all the way into the catacombs, was just like, this is the way I need to go. Of course it is, because the game's supposed to be super freaking hard. And then I took another look around and found the stairway to the Undead Burg, and it was way easier, and I was like, oh, well, now I just feel silly. You know, there's the expectation of what you know about something vaguely, and then there's the reality of the matter. Escape room employee here. I have witnessed a few of these, but most have been told to me by co-workers. Picking a lock with a girl's bobby pin. We provide a key. Thought they had played the room before and were cheating, prying a threaded bolt off the wall with their bare hands, shouting the answer into the camera, the game mic, or writing it on paper provided and blocking our camera with it, instead of, you know, doing the puzzle in real life. We cannot physically lock our rooms due to fire code, so people try to leave the room and come back with power tools we have in our lobby, from room construction and maintenance. There's a 7 to 8 foot armoire in one room. We've had to get people off the top from it before, and this is again after telling them repeatedly that everything they need to interact with is eye level or lower, writing on the clues we slide under the door and asking questions, and most stupidly, sticking metal objects into power outlets. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, and if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Linked in the description below.